And good morning. We're here as a portfolio committee of Home Affairs.
Re tlile fano ba gaetsho ra le dumedisa jaaka portfolio committee ya lefapha la merero ya selegae.
On my right is Honorable Molekwa.
Mme ka fa mojeng wa me ke motlotlegi Molekwa,
On my left is Honorable Ruos.
mme ka fa molebeng wa me ke motlotlegi Ruos.
And we have members of parliament staff who are assisting us to take notes or your submissions.
Le maloko a parlamente e leng badiri ba ba re thusang go kwala dintlha tsa ditshwaelo tse di tlileng go dintsha.
We're here at the Northwest. We started Mahikeng yesterday with Swaz, Reneken. Today we're here in Potch.
Re fano fa mo Bokone Bophirima, re simolotse ko Mafikeng ra ya Swaiza Reneke, mme gompieno re fano mo Potch.
The objective or the intention is to interact with our people on the Electoral Amendment Bill.
Mme boikalelo jwa kopano eno e ke go tla go tlotlisana le lona ka ga molaotlhomo o mametleletsweng wa ditlhopho.
You know that in 2020, the 10th of June, Constitutional Court took a decision to direct Parliament to correct the Electoral Act 73 of 1998.
So ra itse gore ka di 10 tsa June 2020 kgotlatshekelo ya molaotheo ile ya laela parlamente gore e baakanye le go mametlelela dikarolo dingwe tsa molaotlhomo ono.
It has declared the Act 73 of 1998 as unconstitutional, that doesn't allow individuals to participate in the provincial and national elections.
Ile ya kaya gore molaotlhomo ono wa 1998 e leng karolo ya bo 73 ga e tsamaisane le molaotheo ka gonne e sa letle batho ba ile bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi go tsaya karolo go gaisanela ditlhopho.
So the Minister of Home Affairs appointed a task team led by former Minister Musa to look on the modalities on how we can respond to the Constitutional Court judgment.
Ka jalo tona ya pele ya lefapha la merero ya selegae e ne ya kopa Musa gore a tlhome setlhopha sa tiro go bona go tlhotlhomisa ditsela tsa go bona gore batho ba ka tsaya karolo jang jaaka bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi.
The task team has done its work, has consulted stakeholders, political parties, NGOs, has consolidated a report with 2 policy options.
Mme ba ile ba ikgolaganya le di NGO le ditheo tse dingwe tse di farologaneng ka tsone go tla go utlwa ditshwaelo le pego e ba tla tlhagisang ya gore go ka tswela pele ka tsela e ntseng jang mo go direng seo.
They have submitted their report to Cabinet, and Cabinet has interacted with the report and submitted an amendment bill to Parliament.
Ba ile ba tsaya pego eno e ba e romela go lefapha mme la e sekaseka ba tsaya pego eno ba e romela go parlamente.
And they've made their recommendations to the National Assembly.
Mme e tla feletsa ile go kokoano bosetšhaba pego ya teng ya bofelo ba tla e kokoanya.
On the 2 options, the first option is that we must maintain the current electoral system and introduce the independent to participate.
Mme tlhopho ya ntlha e leng tshwetso ene ya nna gore tsamaiso ya ditlhopho ya gone jaana e bolokwe fela jaaka e ntse mme mo go yone go tsengwe tšhono ya ba ba tla gaisanang jaaka bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi.
The second option is that we must have a constituency-based system.
Mme ya bobedi e be nna kgang ya gore go nne le tsamaiso e tla latelelwang e laolang bontlhopheng le batlhophi ba kgaolo ka nngwe.
So in all this recommendation of the task team and the Cabinet, the portfolio committee, we don't have a decision on.
Ka jalo bo ditshwetsong tsotlhe tse di dirilweng ke kabinete mmogo le setlhopha sa tiro se se neng sa tlhongwa rona jaaka komiti ga rena re dira ditshwetso dipe ka ditshwaelo tse di tleng go dirwa.
We then issued an invitation for written submission for the public to make comments on the amendment bill.
Re ile ra ntsha taletso ya gore batho ba romele dingongorego tsa bone tse di kwadilweng e le gore di tle di romelwe go komiti eno ya portfolio.
We further conducted or invited stakeholders that wanted to do oral submission to the committee on the 2nd and 3rd March 2022.
Mme ka di 10 tsa March 2022 go na ga tsengwa kopo ya bobedi ya gore batho jaanong ba ka nna ba ntsha dingongorego tsa bone ka go di bua ka molomo jaaka mo dikokoanong tseno e le gore re tla re kgone go tswelela ka thulaganyo eno.
We are giving this account so that you understand that what is the reason we're here as a portfolio committee.
Ka jalo re leka go le tlhalosetsa dintlha tseno e le gore lo tlhaloganye lebaka la go bo re lefano jaaka komiti ya portfolio.
So we're here to listen to the issues in terms of how you're going to submit to the committee with the intention to guide Parliament on how they must regulate the independent candidates.
Ka jalo re fano go tla go utlwa maikutlo a lona le ditlhotlhomiso tsa ditsela tse e leng gore re batla go tsibogela jang taelo ya palamente ya gore go tsewe karolo mo molaotlhomong eno wa ditlhopho.
Once all the public hearings have been concluded, therefore the committee will deliberate on the issues we've received from the public, political parties, and various stakeholders.
E tla re fa dikokoano tsotlhe tseno tsa go reetsa maloko a setšhaba di sena go konelwa ke gone komiti e tla nnang fa fatshe go di sekaseka le go dira ditshwetso ka ga tsone gore go tlile go tswelela pele ka tsela e ntseng jang.
The other team is led by Honorable Pillay in the Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape.
Re na le setlhopha se sengwe se se tshwanang le sa rona mme sone se dira kwa Eastern Cape se se tsweletseng.
And we're going to conclude our public hearings next week in the Western Cape.
Mme re tlo go konela dikokoano theetso tseno tse re di tshwereng mo bekeng e tlang ko Kapa Bophirima.
So these public hearings is a public hearings for yourself to interact with the committee. Our role is to facilitate for this process.
Ka jalo kokoano ene e re le mo go yona ke ya lona gore lona le tlo tlisana le komiti ya e dutse fa pele ga rona mme rona maikalelo a rona ke go tla go lo reetsa le go kaela thulaganyo ya kokoano eno.
We've allocated yourself or each person 5 minutes for submissions.
So mongwe le mongwe wa lona o neilwe metsotso e ka nna metlhano go ntsha ditshwaelo tsa gago.
However, when we exceed the minutes, you must appreciate when we request you to step aside.
Ka jalo ha e le gore o tla bo o tlodile palo ya metsotso e o e beetsweng re kopa gore o dirisane mmogo le rona ha re go kopa gore re go folose.
But we're not going to suppress individual for making his or her own submission.
Me re tla be re sa gatelle ope gore a se ka a bua le go ntsha ditshwaelo tsa gagwe.
How we're going to run the process that we're going to identify hands. You come to the queue, you make your submission, and then you allow others to make their own submissions.
Ka jalo se re tleng go se dira re tlo go le kopa go tsholetsa matsogo ha lo batla go bua le bo lo ya go dula mo moleng o fa gare wa ditulo o lo tla bontshiwa mo go one be le simolla lo ntsha ditshwaelo tsa lona.
We'll plead with you to respect the person who's on the stage and also respect the minutes you have been allocated.
Re tlo go le kopa gore mongwe le mongwe wa lona a tlotle yo o tlabeng a bua a ska a ita opetsebe le go tshwarelela nako e lo e beetseng le yone.
You are free to use any language to these public hearings.
Ebile le gololosegile go bua ka puo epe fela o lo ka rata go bua ka yone ha lo ntsha ditshwaelo tsa lona.
We're now going to invite hands for those that want to make submissions to the committee.
Jaanong re tlo go le kopa go tsholetsa matsogo lona ba lo ka rata go buisana le komiti.
Number 1, number 2, number 3,
Ha o shua
four,
palo lo ka ya ko moleng ka gare.
6,
A ba go
number
supile.
7. Number 8. Number 9. You must introduce your name first before you make your submission for purpose of record. Yeah, we'll start with the first session. Thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you very much, Program Director. All protocol observed. My name is Mati. The following basis. 1, independents should compete on the same terms as parties. The Constitutional Court obliges Parliament to make amendments to the Act to allow independents to stand against parties in national and provincial elections. It does not force the country to change a system that has served it well, led to no voters or parties ever contesting that ours had always been free, fair, national or provincial elections. We have to make sure the system stays fair, simple, practical. A crowded and long ballot can make elections a logistical nightmare. At the moment, parties pay 60,000 deposit for national and 45,000 for provincial. They win back their deposit or they win one seat. The committee should decide if the same threshold could apply for deposit for independence. One seat is one seat, whether for a party or an independent. Similar to independent in words, independent candidates and parties that do have any seats from previous elections must be able to show that they have at least more support that could potentially win a seat. We should have a very low limit of support to allow serious parties and independent to participate without encouraging frivolous parties and people and overcrowding the process. I support the unrepresented parties and independent candidates should be able to show support of at least 1/3 of the voters needed to win a seat in the previous election. This is the only way to keep the ballot paper to a reasonable size. I so submit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next. Our officials, can you arrange so that they drop the submissions? I don't know.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is John Makubela from Madiba sub-region. I am also a ward councillor and a resident of Ituseng at Madiba Ward 16, representing also Buchanala District Municipality. Independent should compete on the same term as parties. The Constitutional Court obliges Parliament to make amendments to the Act to allow independent to stand against the parties in national and provincial elections. It does not force the country to change a system that has served it well and led to no voters or parties ever contesting that ours has always been free and fair national and provincial elections. We have to make sure that the system that stays fair, simple, and practical. A crowded and a long ballot can make elections a logistical nightmare. At the moment, parties pay 60,000 deposit for national and 45,000 per provincial. They win back their deposit on if they win one seat. The committee should decide if the same threshold could apply for a deposit for independents. One seat is one seat, whether for a party or an independent. Similar to independent in words, independent candidates and parties that do not have any seat from previous elections must be able to show that they have at least one support that could potentially win a seat. We should have a very low limit of support to allow serious parties and independent to participate without encouraging frivolous parties and people and overcrowding the process. I support that unrepresented parties and independent candidates should be able to show support of at least 1/3 of the votes needed to win a seat in previous elections. This is the only way to keep the ballot paper to a reasonable size. So I submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Mphomo Eketsane from the African National Congress in Ward 41, Madiba. I'm also a PR councillor at Bojanala District Municipality. Chairperson and the honorable members, I present hereby there is a big danger to using the current formula. For seats, a lot of parties come in on less than 1 seat's worth of votes. Votes required for the quota of 1 seat have often been between 40,000 and 60,000 per seat, depending on the legislature and voter turnout. But some small parties have won seats on 10,000 votes in the National Assembly due to the formula for the largest remainder vote being used to allocate leftover seats. Potentially we can have many small parties and independent occupying key seats that hold a balance of power in the legislature or parliament, where no party gets over 50%. This is happening at municipal level and often leads to unstable and temporary collusion. This could be much worse at national and provincial level, where government could be paralyzed by small parties and independents who present only tiny fractions of voters, but who can make stable government impossible. I propose a 2-stage process where all who meet the full quota for 1 seat are awarded a seat, whether as parties or independents. Once no one is left who is entitled to a seat based on meeting the full quota threshold, the remainder seats should then be given to the parties that have the highest average of votes per seat won. An independent can obviously only occupy 1 seat, and their surplus votes will be discarded. Any party that has surplus votes should have this added on their total and divided by the number of seats already won by them. The party with the highest average will get the remainder seats. This is my view, and in support of the ANC position on the matter, the only way proportionally can be maintained, we can prevent a situation like we have currently, where many parties with less than 0.25% support still occupy seats. Most other countries with the PR system have much higher threshold of 3% and 7% of the vote before any seats are awarded. This is done to maintain stable government. It is difficult to negotiate across thousands of fractions and totally acceptable in international practice to require significant support for public representative. I so submit.
Next.
Thank you. I'm Noma Wisile Deleki from the African National Congress, Ward 7 in Moses Kotane Sub-Region, Northwest Province, as well as the residential and related contact details provided hereby supports the support minimalist approach on the following basis. If Parliament is divided into many small fractions, forming government is challenging. Chairperson and honorable members, I present hereby that there is a big danger to using the current formula for seats, and a lot of parties come in on less than 1 seat worth of voters worth of voters,
What of vote? Votes required for a
What is
quota of one
required
seat.
for, or one seat has, after being between 40,000 and 60,000 per seat, depending on the delegate, legislature and voter
Voter turnout.
turnout, but same small parties have win seat on 10,000 voters in National Assembly due to the formula for the largest remainder voter being used to allocate leftover seats.
Potentially we can have.
Potential, we can have many small parties and independents occupying key seats that hold a balance on power in legislature or parliament where no party gets over 50%. This is happening at municipal level and often leads to unsuitable and temporary
Coalitions.
coalitions. This will be much worse at national and provincial government, where government could be paralyzed by small parties and independents who represent only
Tiny
tiny
fractures.
fractures of voters, but who can make stable governance impossible. I propose a two-stage process where all who need the full quota for one seat are awarded a seat, whether as parties or independents, once no more is left who is
Entitled to a seat.
entitled to a seat based on meeting the full quota
Threshold.
threshold. The remainder seat will then be given to parties that have highest average of voter per seat win. An independent can
Obviously.
only occupy one seat, and their
Surpluses
surplus voter will be
discarded.
discarded. Any party that has surplus voters should have those added to their total and divided by the number of seats already won by them. The party with the highest average will get a remainder seat. This is, in my view, and in support of the ANC position on the matter, the only way
Proportionality.
You can
can
work-
be
you can work towards
nominated,
closing.
and we can prevent a situation like have currently, where many parties with less than 0.25% support still occupy seat.
But uqeqelele ma.
You can work
Uqeqelele.
towards closing. I think
She's-
you are working outside your minutes now.
Isikhathi sakho siphelile.
You can submit the, yes. Thank you. Next.
Dumelang bagolo.
Greetings to honorable members.
I, Caroline Ngafeng Motsabi,
My name is Caroline Gayton Motsabi.
from the African National Congress,
African
Ward
National
13,
Congress.
in the Moses Kotane sub-region, Northwest Province, as well as the resident and related contact detail provided hereby, support the minimalist approach on the following basis, as well as the chief whip of Moses Kotane local municipality. My support for the current PR system, I believe that ANC has always supported a proportional representative system as it is best suited to a country as diverse as us in terms of race, class, language. It ensures that every political viewpoint shared by more than 1/4% of the population is able to find representation in parliament and speak on behalf of that constituency. We have never supported a first past the post constituency system, as it is very difficult to reach the same level of diverse representation when only one or maybe a handful of some are selected to represent a distinct geographical area. Each geographical area has its own level of diversity and division. The PR system has meant that parties, even small parties that get as little as 0.2% and of the vote remain in parliament and have a voice in every legislature. The Vryheid Front Plus is a good example of a party that has been accommodated peacefully and constructively because of the PR system since our democracy started, but has never reached 2.5% of the vote. It is hard to imagine them or any other small party winning constituency seat when constituencies, in bracket, if there were 200, for parliament will have least 100,000 voters. The PR system also allows better representation of women, youth, and other marginalized groups. I therefore submit my fervent support for option 1 as included on the amendment bill. I broadly support it as the best option for implementing the Constitutional Court order. I do, however, have some very serious concern about practically of the system as it is currently contained in the bill. I urge the Home Affairs Committee to consider these challenges carefully as they may cause unintended consequences that can harm our democracy. I wish to avoid further court challenges by other independent or parties that may feel disadvantaged, and also wish to maintain the principle of the Constitution that as all that our electoral system reflects overall proportionality. 2, problematic long ballot caused by too many independent and parties on the ballot. I am very concerned that the new system can result in a very long ballot paper that is impractical. For example, if we have 48 national parties as in 2019 and another 200 individuals who stand as independent, the ballot paper will need about 10 pages with 25 names per page. A multi-page ballot is a big problem for voters. The IEC and parties, it will thus need a much longer time to vote, as voters must reach for the name of their party or independent among many other names. A 10-page booklet for a ballot will mean the IEC needs to have much bigger budget for printing, distribution, and staff. Even ballot boxes will have to be 10 times as many to accommodate the ballot. Counters will have to check every page of every ballot to make sure it is not spoiled by a voter voting twice. Counting could also take 5 to 10 times as long. I am also very concerned that the amendment should find a way to not waste money and time and make election too
You must work
complicated and practical.
Sorry, you must work towards closing, summarizing.
So it is difficult, I think, for us, when I summarize, is that we should minimize the challenges that we are having as the parliament on taking participation when we have to vote to accommodate all challenges that we'll be having to resolve the problem. I thank you very much.
You can drop the submission here. Thank you. Next.
Bagaetsho ke a le dumedisa lebitso la ka ke Kgotso Ratikwane.
My name is Khotso Madikwane.
Okay. I am from Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party. We as Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party, we believe that the community who brought this matter to court was correct, was on point. Hence the court judged on their side, not because of such justice were biased, but was based on democratic discourse. Why an individual be regarded, be required 7% of disability is unfair to us, because we feel that that will discriminate the disability people in this country. It doesn't make sense to us at all. Disability of this country at least must be given 4% rather than 7%. In terms of deposit of 45,000 rand for provincial, and maybe perhaps 200,000, I'm not sure about national deposit, how much it will be. The national amount won't be fair for the poor and the working class of this country, but will continue to benefit the rich and the parties. Hence, IEC is not meant only for political parties. Section 9 of the Constitution of this country says, and I will quote, "Everyone is equal before the law," unquote. So for those independent who have managed to obtain more than 55% of quota, will be allocated 1 seat. So what about more number of electorate that will be surplus from 55% of that quota participated in those elections? It says to us, they are getting deprived from their own constitutional right to participate in that particular elections. So for that matter, this quota system must be changed, as it will be contravention of the Section 9 of the Constitution. The PR list must be established to safeguard the candidate in case of he or she could die somehow along the list, along his tenure. In terms of threshold, that this individual should qualify at least 10,000 of electorate will be fair enough. In that case, we fully support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Thank you very much for all those that made submission on the first set of hands. Can we recognize further hands?
Re kopa setlhopha se sengwe gape sa matsogo.
Number 1. Yeah, you can come here. Number 2. Number 3, number 4. Number 5, number 6. Yeah, you can join the seating arrangement. We want also to recognize all councillors who are here
Re tsa nako e gape go lebelela ba councilor ba ba tlileng fa mo
from
kopanong
various
e.
municipalities who have joined these public hearings.
bo masepala ba ba nang le rena fa kajeko.
Yeah, we can start. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. My name is Kolisi Letingiswayo. I'm a member of the African National Congress from Ward 14, Rustenburg sub-region. I wish to present that the amendments to the bill are creating a challenge to the electoral system that the country currently has, in a sense that our experience with independent candidates at the level of municipalities suggests that whenever there is a vacancy created, say for instance an independent in a ward dies, there is provision for by-elections at the level of municipalities. And in the instance where an independent candidate sits at the National Assembly or provincial legislature, and such person dies, we are clutching straws as to how National Assembly and or the provincial legislature applies a replacement for such a vacancy. When, instance, you have a proportion of 10,000 votes from the 4 districts and all the municipalities in the Northwest Province. Unlike in a ward when you know that this person was elected by 3,000 voters in a particular VD or in a particular ward, an election can be held there. But in a situation where 10,000 people across the province or across the country have actually appointed or elected that person, how do you replace that person in that national space or provincial space? We therefore, as the African National Congress, concede that we have created an electoral system that is PR-based and that is of party representatives. And there's never been an opposition whatsoever since 1994 that such a system has ever presented an unfair or a not free elections to the country. We are actually an example to many countries across the world as to how our elections have been free and fair. We therefore want to say as the ANC, notwithstanding the changes that are perhaps to other people's aspirations, we have the interest of the country at heart. And our young democracy cannot afford unnecessary interruptions that seek to advance smaller interests that can actually be accommodated. We understand also that everybody wants to be part of the bigger system of public representatives. But we are saying it should not be done at the expense of the very important aspect of democratic principles that we have has actually been espoused by our electoral system. Thank you. I will make my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Thank you very much. I'm Luisa Loratomadi from the African National Congress. I come from Ward 8 in Rustenburg sub-region or local municipality, but I'm also a councillor. I'm a resident of Rustenburg, like I say, in the Northwest Province, and I'm very happy to be given this opportunity to raise some of the issues that I know are issues that are raised by the communities. My views are that independents should compete on the same terms as parties, and that the Constitutional Court obliges Parliament to make amendments to the Act to allow independents to stand against parties in national and provincial elections. It does not force the country to change a system that has served it well and led to no voters or parties ever contesting that ours had always been a free and fair national and provincial elections. We have to make sure that the system stays fair, simple and practical to the voters. A crowded and long ballot can make elections a logistical nightmare, especially because the majority of our people have not yet reached the level that we require for literacy, especially those in rural areas. At the moment, parties pay 60,000 rands deposit for national and 45,000 per provincial registration. They win back their deposit if they win one seat. The committee should decide if the same threshold could apply, and it will be preferable that it must apply for deposits for independents. One seat is one seat, whether for a party or an independent, but it is a seat to be represented in National Assembly and in the provincial legislature. So similar to independent in wards, independent candidates and parties that do not have any seats from previous elections must be able to show that they have at least some support that could potentially win a seat. We should have a very low limit of support to allow smaller parties or serious independents to participate without encouraging frivolous parties and people and overcrowding of the ballot paper. I support that unrepresented parties and independent candidates should be able to show support of at least 1/3 of the votes needed to win a seat in the previous election. This is the only way that we keep the ballot paper to a reasonable size. I repeat, some of the people will find it tedious to go through a long list of parties and independent candidates. In closing, let us not discriminate between parties and independent candidates. Both must be treated equally without having a special dispensation for independent candidates and a special dispensation for political parties. We must all be treated equally, political parties and independent candidates. No special dispensation for independent candidates. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next.
Yes, I'm Tebogo Alekheto from Ward 6 Ikageng. Basically, what I wanted to say.
Sorry, if you can repeat your name and surname.
Tebogo Alekheto from
you.
Ward 6 Ikageng. Basically, what I wanted to say, my fellow comrade uttered on it. But I just want to say, we must go back and remember that the democratic system that we are using in South Africa is very open and is open for everybody. We should understand that in the beginning, we agreed that we are equal before the law. I do understand that some of our people, they don't understand when we are talking about independent candidates. According to the Huntington Third Wave of democracy, it's very important that everyone's view should be recognized so that we must build a better future for our people. There's no difference between an independent candidate and a political party candidate. What is of importance is to go and build this country. Thank you, people.
Thank you. Next.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Gabrielle Kang. I'm from Rustenburg sub-region, residing in Ward 16, Hellowood Park Extension 9. My submission will be that a It's just a concern about this new system, in the sense that it might result in a situation whereby the ballot paper becomes so much bigger and it becomes complicated as well. I strongly believe that the system that we've been using is a maturing democracy. It has proven to be more effective. We need to take into consideration if this, honestly speaking, was to be the case, what the logistical nightmare will be to the parties' concerns that arrange this kind of elections. Honestly speaking, I mean, you might end up with a ballot paper of more than 2,000 candidates. Just imagine a voter queuing. Then at the ballot booth find that he's given a ballot paper that consists of over 2,000 candidates, be it independent or whatever parties that might be. So it is of paramount importance that as we are a maturing democracy, we must try our utmost best in continuing to enhance the system that we are having. I strongly believe that with the new the first industrial revolution, at some stage it will be enable our communities in broader far-flung areas to be able to participate effectively. There's nothing wrong with the system, even only if one of the colleagues indicated that the high rate of illiteracy is so high. So we're still crawling, making sure that this particular system. So my proposal will be these new parties who are not represented yet in the legislature of parliament and independent candidates should be able to demonstrate that they have voter support and have some change of winning, or not change, chances of winning a seat. I further suggest that the threshold should be at least a third quota needed for a person to qualify for these elections. So that will be my submission in a nutshell. I don't have much to add on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity. My name is Semi Samson Lebelo. I also hail from the sub-region of Rustenburg in Bojanala. I am here to present the minimalist approach that as the African National Congress seat, the prospect of collapsing government in the event of death of one or more independently elected public representative at National Assembly or provincial legislature. We live in a world where incidents and insurrections criminally, sabotage and many other forces of doom prevails. I implore you to consider the continuation of the current proportional system because it provides for a seamless transition and replacement of public representatives from within the party list that have been confirmed by the IEC. The prospect of government collapsing as a result of one independent representative who could have by luck ascended to a seat in presidency dying and a country not having a ready-made solution to such an eventuality is dire. Unlike with ward councillors, for which a by-election can be held to elect a replacement, a person who dies having occupied a seat in the National Assembly or provincial legislature as a result of having been voted by 50 people across the country, with such vote not being consistent with solid constituencies, such as having won 3 or more VDs in a ward, will be extremely difficult to replace. I support the minimalist approach of the NC, whose intention is to ensure not only stability in our country, democracy to avoid challenges that, in my view, seeks to fix system that is not broken and is in the interest of a larger population of our country, whose rights in the form of votes will inadvertently be violated and or be compromised. I so submit, my chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. You can leave. Yeah, thank you very much. Next.
Dumela Magaetsho.
Greetings to honorable members.
Nna ka leina ke Rre Thapelo Sekosana,
My name is Tapelas Khosane,
go tswa teng mo Potche Ward 1.
just around here in Potchefstroom, Ward 1.
Community member.
I'm part of the community.
Tlhola ke utlwa ba re member of the ANC in good standing.
I usually hear the statement.
Ke tla simolola ka gore ke itumetse bagolo gore le be le le teng mo.
I will start by saying I really appreciate your
Re
presence here.
Chabane. Ka
Mr.
metlha ga re sena nna re le tsenya la re blue tick.
Normally, when we appoint you, you start blue ticking us, just ignoring us.
So
though.
ke tlile go kopa gore nna ke tlile go ala phate.
Therefore, I'll be straight and forward.
Gore ke tlile go nna broad. Ka gore ga nke letla mo gore nna ke tshotse dingwaga di ka nna di le supa gore ke kopane le portfolio committee. I'm sure o na le my WhatsApp.
It took me about 7 years since I have been in contact with you, but I believe that you do have my WhatsApp text.
But ke tla dula mo tshimong e seng mo lekweteng.
I will just be humble and not be too hard on you.
Ha ke gopola sentle judgment e ha ke tla gopola ke ra nna leleme la ga Kgosi Kgadi Elizabeth ala a ke monatenyana mo.
If my memory serves me well, I'll try to remember this judgment.
The current electoral law ga ithulanya le constitution ya rona.
Basically, what it says is that the current electoral law is in conflict with our constitution.
Yaanong in ruta gore ga ke tla go bua fa motlhomong ke go tsaya metsotso di supa.
Therefore, it makes me aware that I should just take 7 minutes to talk about it.
Puo ya ka ke harologanya ka dintlha di le tharo.
My say will be in different three terms.
Ya ntlha ke gore re aroganye experience ya di independent.
My first point is to differentiate the experience of the independents.
Ya bobedi ke gore re kene mo recommendation ya go sengwe go te ke interministerial advisory committee.
My second point is to actually allude more into interministerial committee.
Ya boraro ke gore re kene mo di recommendation.
The third point, as I mentioned, to very strong recommendations.
Ha o ka diragala gore ke pheta se batho ba ba tleng before nna ne ke le siko ba se budeng ke kopa o mphe nako.
If I were to repeat what already been mentioned by other speakers, please allow me.
Ke a tle go utlwi batho ba ba buang sekgwa ba re.
Yeah, let me just protect you so that we were all on the same process. We agreed in terms of the process that we allocate an individual 5 minutes. But if you go beyond that, we'll request you, we'll caution you. So I'm saying your motivation to have extra minutes is not approved in terms of our work. So just focus on what you want to submit, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Okay. Mara ne kere batho ba sekgwa ba re when you suppress an old man from speaking, you might be burning the library.
No.
Ke a simolola. Ke tla go bolokela nako se ka wa.
I will save your time, Mr. Chair. Please.
Just hold on.
Yes.
We have ran public hearings on two, led by Honorable Pillay and ourselves throughout provinces. And we dealt with the attitudes like this. What we plead is that we indicated throughout, even you can check our records, we don't suppress people or political parties. But we caution members who are in the public hearing that focus on the electoral bill. And when we caution you, it's not necessary to come back and try to rebuke the process we've outlined, because we respect, it's a spirit in which we want to assist ourselves. We said we're not going to suppress anyone. But when you rebuke the system, you're also cautioning us to make you understand that we are able to be in control of the system. We understand that you're from ANC or EFF or DA or other political parties, but let's respect the process and the audience we're in. Can we try to work together? Thanks very much.
Thank you once more. Mare akarano ne kere ke okay. Rachaban mutlokwe ye mo Potchefstroom. Mudumo tletseng wa independent o simolotse mo ka 2013 if you remember.
Mr. Chabane, let me bring this to your attention that this complication started 2020.
Out of 9 wards, 10 contest to one of them can Ratikwan. Only one independent won a seat. And immediately after that, in 2014, the very same independent, he joined the EFF while being a member of council representing the independents. Now, puya ka ke gore ke batla go isa go goreng khanya di independent le tabogile le mo lebilong. Go ya ka nna constitutional court e re fileng this judgment. E re file 2 years. But mo 2 years saying half of 2 years rotlhe ne re thibiletswe ke le wanana la ga reporting.
Mr. Chairperson, I think you're rushing the process of this whole independent candidates. With experience based on this period, we've experienced a lot of complications in this matter.
Now, if we say the experience that we have learned, Mopoch, and then redirisa yone so that we can thusa this thing.
We need to learn from the experience that actually took place in Potch to avoid being further on trouble.
Let me share the experience at the independents. Independents, they will contest elections, lose elections, and then run to the courts and win the courts. And experience of that, even from 3 weeks back, the independent candidate won a case against the IEC. Now, because now I'm totally against this amendment bill. How is an amendment bill? Interministerial Advisory Committee.
When you refer from the Interministerial Advisory Committee,
an independent person, only for him to secure a seat, 220,000 votes. And when you divide a 220 votes by 55, a minority party, Kiss Party, Daga Party, a seat. By a seat, 55, Hoyaka interministerial, but Nakiti 40,000 always. But Korea City, 220, but Korea City, therefore. Now the independent. So if then we say, okay, if then we say, these people, they must then have to have 220 votes, then you are opening yourself for litigation. Ask me, I am the first councillor to be removed from council by the Constitutional Court. I know these things. And in most cases, they win cases through lies. I must share this experience. One of those who submitted an affidavit to the Constitutional Court is a former councillor of COPE. I asked him last week after the judgment of Mama Batabile. He said, did you saw what happened to Mama Batabile? And you lied to the Constitutional Court. He said to me, that thing, it was this independent, they were dealing directly with Musiwa. I only attached the signature. Now, if you are not going to be careful about this thing, we are up against the trouble. Number 2 is the recommendations. Number 3. I do recommend, in fact, my cell phone number is being blocked for 2 years. I can't access my voter status due to Ntate Samamabolo and Ntate Mukabela being blocking my cell phone number because they've got more than 4 letters complaining about their incompetence in running elections. I can even share those letters with you. Now, I do beg you to ask Ntate Mamabolo to unblock my cell phone number. Number 2, Section 8 of the Electoral Act. All these judgments. You must be an ordinary resident. Yeah, the what? I do request, because in this one, history is going to judge you very harshly. When the election started on, I saw someone voting in Huhudi, is the premier. According to my experience, ordinarily, he's staying in Mafike. Now, it is up to this portfolio committee to go and verify, because someone will take this matter to court, to go and verify. When did they last time see Ntate Mape Atsoha Kuhudi?
Yeah, just work towards concluding.
Yes. Number 2, it's our president. I don't know, did we remember when did last time Ntate Cyril Ramaphosa Atsoha ko Shawela, or did community members of Shawela? You can even read paragraph 61 of the CAM judgment. If then Ntate Ramaphosa is ordinarily not staying in Shawela, then Ntate Ramaphosa, he must be charged for voting in wrong ward. The last one, because of
I kindly request to be patient with me because you
after
rush in the process.
the judgment, yeah.
No, you must now finish.
Yes, I'm finishing. IEC after the judgment, yeah, 2015, but what I liked about the IEC, they then went back to the Constitutional Court and asked for the interpretation of the judgment. Now, don't be in a rush. Go back to the Constitutional Court and extend the period able for the 24 months. So, because this thing, if you are going to rush for it, for instance, if then, June, this bill passes you.
If you're on that matter, just will respond to that.
Yes, if June, this matter passes you, June.
If this matter passes in June,
then by elections a municipality, then that means that municipality, all the independent candidates, they must then contest for PR seat. And presently, the current legislation doesn't allow the independent candidates to contest a PR seat.
Thank you. There are 2 categories on your submissions.
bagaetsho go na le dintlha tse pedi mo ditshwaelong tsa lona.
One, you have submitted what we're expecting as a committee,
Ya ntlha re lefile se le solofetseng le le committee,
which we appreciate.
mme re leboga go menagane.
The second category on your submission is accusations.
Tlhopho ya bobedi ya mo ditshwaelong tsa lona ke ditetefatso,
Which you accuse the number that you have indicated.
ga le letefatsa batho ka dinomoro tse o fetsang go di tlisa fo pele ga committee,
Which are not relevant and perhaps not tested in terms of why you are here.
ebile ga di tsamaisane le lebaka la gore goreng re le fa gompieno.
there's an issue, accused IEC, the president, Home Affairs.
Ditatofatso tsa Tonakgolo ya Afrika Borwa, Lefapha la Home Affairs.
So I don't think that is the spirit in which we must abuse the audience.
Ka jalo ga ke rotloetse gore re tswele pele ka mokgwa o.
If you have been interacting with the chairperson
Ga ntse o bua le modulasetilo
over time,
mo nakong e fetileng,
the committee here, they will tell you any matter that we deal with it in the Home Affairs, we interact with the Department of Home Affairs. So there's no matter that we have received and have not interacted and nor responded to the individual consent.
ga gona di tshwaelo kapa di nyenyedego tse di tlileng for committee tse ileng gore ga ise re tse ka tlhonamo le go buisana le parlamente le committee.
So that we can, with authority, tell you that there's no matter that the AD is our PS in the committee and members here who have received, we have not responded, we have not interacted. So let's not abuse the space.
Ga ise nne ka motse ope mo e leng gore rona re le committee ke ba ya lontate AD gore ga ise re lebisi ditaba tse leng gore di tshwanetse gore le di utlwe ra di sedisi tlhogong.
And secondly, we're aware that the CEO of IEC or the commissioners of IEC, they're not here.
Re tlhokometse yalo gore di commissionera tsa IEC ga di fa.
And if you raise allegations, they don't have recourse to respond.
Jalo ga le tlisa ditotofatso ga gona monyetla gore ba ka boela mo dikarabong tseo.
So as members of parliament, we must able to assist for this disabuse of the platform.
Jaaka re le lekgotla la parlamente re fano go thusa di tatofatso tseo.
If there's any matter related to IEC allegations, you must communicate with them.
Ga ile gore gona le ditatofatso kgotsa dingongorego tse di mabapi le ditlhopho le di lebise go bathong ba ditlhopho.
Thirdly, it's not necessary to come and accuse the president in this platform.
Lebaka la gompieno ga go a tshwanna gore le totofatse mo president wa rona wa Afrika Borwa mo kokopanong ya gompieno.
Or any other person on the voting process.
Or mongwe le mongwe mo ditlhophong tse mo tsamaisong ya ditlhopho.
We fully understand and have read the issues of Tlokwe.
Re tlhaloganya ga le badile ebile le rona re tse matsapa a go tlhaloganya dingongorego tsa Tlokwe.
So we don't need another lecture.
Ga re tlhoke gape dithuto tse dingwe gape.
So I just want to lay out the areas that we must understand why we are here. That's why we take time to take you out of the stage, because we want you to talk, but it's our responsibility to guide why we are here.
Ke maikarabelo a rona gompieno gore le mosa lebaka le re tlisitseng fa gompieno jalo ke kopa gore le tse di tlhaloganyo tsa lona le tlhome mo megopolong ya lona se re setletseng fa kwa kopano ya gompieno.
Lastly, you know that when there's elections throughout the country or local government elections,
Sa bofelo ga le itse gore go na le ditlhopho mo diprovinceng,
there are members who are granted special votes.
go na le ba ba fiwang jalo tshono ya go tlhopha.
So if you have been in election, you have a theory on the elections, you are grounded on the electoral process, you'll appreciate that there's a process of people who are granted specific areas to go and vote during that process.
Ke tshepa le itse ebile le na le botlhale ba ditlhopho ka jalo ke tshepa gore gompieno le tla dirisa tsamaiso eo le tsebang eo.
So we want to plead on behalf of the committee, humbly, let's focus on the electoral bill, raise your issues, make the submissions, but don't abuse the system.
Ra go kopa gape bagolo ka tswetswe gore a re tlhome megopolo ya rona mo se re setletseng gompieno e leng mametlelelo a molaotlhomo.
Thank you very much.
Ke leboga go menagane.
Can we invite further hands to make submissions?
Re kopa gape setlhopha sa matsogo go tlisa ditshwaelo.
Number one. Any other submission? we encourage you to talk to the issues which we are dealing with. Okay, you can start, maybe we'll get other hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Samuel Shange from Ward 9, GB Max Municipality, representing Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party. In 1996, Democratic South Africa adopted Section 4.1 of the Electoral Act 108 of 1996, which states that the National Assembly should have not less than 350 or more than 400 members of parliament, each according to size of each province. We argue that through proportional representation, we emphasize that the current constitution is unclear about the kind of proportionality because of both national and provincial election has used a party list electoral system, and the same should be done to the independent candidates. We agree to the amendment bill for independent candidate to contest the election because of with parties choose candidates without voters' input. Voters simply vote into power the party, not an individual. And that suppresses the voters' right or will to select an individual in the party during the elections. But with this bill, the voters' will to choose a direct individual, it is not suppressed. Often candidates are selected based on their loyalty to the party or the leader, rather than the competence or the talent of individual. And this undermines effective democracy, but not overlooking factors such as competitiveness, equality, responsiveness, and accountability. We as SRWP, we acknowledge and accept the bill that independent candidates should be treated fairly and equally as parties during the elections by the Independent Electoral Commission, and this will show the real democracy of the Republic of South Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we check other further hands? Number 1. Any further hands? Number 2 at the back. You can join us, Mr. Okay, does it mean that these are our last hands?
Good day, my name is Tiwe, I'm PR Councillor. Good day, my name is Tiwe, PR Councillor in Ward 9 from a district municipality. Participation of independent candidate in the elections process will be create a administrative challenge of the IEC to manage election. IEC is battle with the management of electoral process at the moment. If an independent candidate wants to participate in election, he must first reach a threshold of the number of voters at quality for registration. Thank you.
Nna ka lebitso ke nna o dirile Mokgitli ke tlhaga ke le ko constituency ya African National Congress.
I'm from the African National Constituency. The name being Udirile Mokheti.
I will therefore be reading from our speaker's approach, where it says the ANC supports the system. The ANC has always supported a proportional system, as it is best suited to a country as diverse as ours in terms of race, class, and language. It ensures that every political viewpoint shared by more than 1/4 of a percentage of the population is able to find representation in parliament and speaks on behalf of that constituency. Therefore, we never supported a first past the post constituency system, as it is very difficult to reach the same level of diverse representation when only one or maybe a handful of people have selected to represent a distinct geographical area. Each geographical area has its own level of diversity and division. The PR system has meant that even small parties that get as little as 0.25% of the vote remain in parliament and have a choice in every legislature. It is very hard to imagine any small party winning constituency seats when constituencies, if there were 200 in brackets for parliament, would have at least 1,000 voters. I think in this approach, the ANC was trying to say that if an independent candidate stands and there are a proportion of seats that are supposed to be allocated to political parties, in which approach will they then be approaching and giving forth to the Speaker of Parliament or the Speaker of any legislative body in our three governing spheres, being it national, provincial, and in our local councils. And then we are going to the second one, where we are approaching the problematic long ballot caused by too many independent political parties. In this approach, the ANC says, we are very concerned that the new system can result in a very long ballot paper that is impractical. For example, if we have 48 national parties as in 2019 and another 200 individuals who stand as independents, the ballot will need 10 pages with 25 names on each. A multi-page ballot is a big problem for voters. The IEC and parties, it will need a much longer time for voters to search for the name of the political party. I think this we have experienced it during the local government elections and the national elections, where particularly in the local elections, where one had to vote for the PR, the district, and the local municipality or their wards in particular, where a voter was antagonized by the long and withstanding ballot papers. So therefore, the ANC would like to submit to Parliament that let there be a different approach. When we are saying independent, let the independent candidates be named in prior, because now we'll be having a system where 25 individual candidates are on a ballot. Let's take the 4 participants standing there or commissioners sitting there. So your ballot paper will be written independent, 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 independent. Whereas a voter comes, they only know that they should vote for independent, but they don't particularly know which independent party are they, or which political candidate are they submitting to. I think for this far, this is our submission from the African National Congress in Tlokwe. Thank you very much.
Further hands?
Re bona ra leboga a gona le matsogo a mangwe gape.
Okay. So we're agreeing that we don't repeat. You wanted to make addition.
We were in consideration with the invitation that due to considerations of COVID and so forth, we may not bring many people here. And therefore, we have brought with submissions from our constituency. I was just saying we would be submitting those two. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks very much for that intervention.
Re lebogela ntlha eo ya gago.
But it's important to ask if there's any other person who want to raise something.
Mme go botlhokwa thata mo go rona go botsa gore a go santsane go na le mongwe yo o batla go tlhagisa ntlha nngwe.
Okay. So if there are other submissions that your members are having, they will liaise with the team immediately we finish. The matter that you raise on the extension of period, Honorable Ross will deal with that in his closing.
Ntlha e ne wa tlhagisa ya gore go okediwe lobaka lwa teng re Mathonsi o etse tlhoko o tla berekana le yona.
So thanks very much. If there's no any other hand to make submission, we want to thank you for the contributions you have made. Oh, are you raising your hand, ma'am? Okay.
Re leboga thata ba gaetso ha ile gore ga go tlhole go na le matsogo a go tlhagisa dintlha dipedi tse di oketsegileng re leboga fela thata mme ke tere bone letsogo la mmemong ko morago.
And your contributions are important to assist us to deal with this, to respond to the Constitutional Court judgment.
Ditshwaelo tsa lona di botlhokwa thata ka gonne di a re thusa gore re kgone go tsibogela taelo e ntshitswe ke kgotlatshekelo ya molaotheo.
We'll take counsel on all the issues we've raised, including the Tlokwe independent issues.
Re etse tlhoko dintlha tse di tlhagisitseng tse di amanang le bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetse ka nosi ba ba mo Tlokwe.
It was important for us to come and listen to yourselves.
Ne go le botlhokwa thata gore re tle fane go tla go lo reetsa.
We'll take this opportunity, give Honorable Ross to outline the process, how we're going to move from here.
Re tle go tsaya sebaka seno se go kopa motlotlegi Rose gore a lo tlhalosetse gore go a go diregang go tloga fano.
And the gentleman who was here, who has issues with the issues related matters of home affairs, immediately we finish, you will come and see Mr. Matonsi.
Re mongwe yo neng a bua fano fa yo na le mathata a seng kana ka sepe ka lefapha la merero ya selegae home affairs ha re fetsa fano fa a tle mo gore re Mathonsi a tle go bua le ene.
I would like to request Honorable Ross to do closing remarks. Thank you.
Jaanong re tla kopa motlotlegi Rose gore a re ne ditshwaelo tsa go konela.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson.
Ke a leboga
And,
modulasetulo.
Yes, thank you for everybody for coming and participating in democracy on your Saturday morning.
Re leboga lotlhe mo mosong ono wa Satertaga go bo lo tlile go tla go tsaya karolo mo thulaganyo ya demokrasi.
So we will now be moving on from the Northwest Province to the Western Cape.
Jaanong go tloga fano re tla tlogela province ya Bokone Bophirima re ya go province ya Kapa Bophirima.
For the last of our public hearings.
Re ya go tshwara dikokoano tsa bofelo tse di tshwana le eno.
Then after that, we will consider all the inputs. A report will be developed considering all the inputs from across the country.
Morago ga moo re tla be re tlotla ka ditshwaelo tsotlhe tse re di kokoantseng go tswa mo nageng yotlhe tse ntseng re tsamaya re di reetsa.
And very importantly, there's been a comment about not rushing.
Me re letse tlhoko gore go ntse go na le tshwaelo engwe e botlhokwa e ntseng e tlhagisiwa.
So we have approached the Constitutional Court to request an extension on their deadline.
Ya go okediwa ga lobaka mme re na le kopo go kgotlatshekelo ya theomolao ya go tlhagisa kopo eo mo go bone.
Because it's important that we take the time to carefully consider all your inputs.
Ka gonne go botlhokwa gore re nne le nako ya gore re sekaseke le go utlwa ditshwaelo tsotlhe tsa lona tse di botlhokwa.
So after we have done so in the National Assembly in Parliament,
Ha re sena go dira jalo ko kokoanong bosetšhaba mo go le kwa parlamenteng.
the bill will then go to the National Council of Provinces.
Molaotlhomo ono o tla bo o romelwa go National Council of Provinces.
And they may request further public hearings.
Go ka nna ga direga gore ba tshware dikokoano tse di tshwanang le tseno tse di oketsegileng.
Then after it's returned to the National Assembly,
Me fa e sena go busediwa go kokoano bosetšhaba.
then the bill is passed and then it goes to the President to sign it into law.
Molaotlhomo ono o tla bo o fetisiwa gore mopresidente a o sign gore jaanong e nne molao o go berekwang ka one.
Once again, I thank you and a safe journey home.
Re a lo leboga gape re kopa gore lo tsamaye tsela tshweu go ya gae.
Agenda.
E konetswe kokoano ya rona bagaetsho re a leboga.
Thank you very much. I didn't know it's on. 1, 2, 1, 2, we're testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, we're testing. Yeah. Absolutely, it's beautiful. Very well. Yes. Yeah, yeah, one. Yeah, IT guy, come on.
Re ka kwano mo Madiba Banquet Hall re buisana ka kwano le modulasetulo wa komiti eo ya merero ya selegae ke re Chabane tla re go amogela gape re go dumedise mo a ganang
No, re a leboga le ka mogolo ya lena.
re lebogile a o kgotsofaletse thologelo ya baagi ka kwano mo ditheetsong tse di ka kwano
Ya re kgotsofetse ka baagi ge ba boletse le rona ba komiti go bontsha gore re tsamaiso e ya Electoral Amendment Bill re tle re e tsamaise jwang go be le dikakanyo tse dintsi tse di tsweletse mo le tla gopola gore go be le also le di comparison tša mo tlokwe gore le be le mathata kwa morago ene gore re strengthen Electoral Amendment Bill ye go swantse re dire jwang mara re kgotsofetse rena ba komiti ka re community e tlile ka bongata ba tlo bontšha gore dikakanyo tše re ka di tša jwang
seo se ra gore ne le ditheetso tsa bofelo from ka kwa Mahikeng go ya ka Saezareneke le ka kwana mo Potchefstroom go tlogeng fano le lebaka ya jaaka komiti
go tloga jwano go tloga fa dikomiti ro feletsa ko provinceng ya Western Cape le di public hearing go tšwela pele go theeletša setšhaba le go sorta di-views tša setšhaba se sohle and re tshepa gore re tla re ge re dule committee go ba le dikakanyo tše dintsi